Johnny Manziel will become even bigger in the city of Cleveland than his buddy and business partner LeBron James ever was.
With the game on the line, one shot, who would you rather have taking it, Iggy or Curry?
Of everyone on Golden State, open shot, fate of the universe on the line, or the Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth, you better hit it. I want Iguodala.
I'm saying it on national television. Devin Booker
said it.
is the next Kobe Bryant.
If you only flip past ESPN's First Take for a minute or two, it can feel like any other sports debate show. A bold take, louder rebuttals, and then cut to commercial before anyone finishes a thought. But if you stick around, you notice something different, and not in a good way. The volume goes up, the takes get fuzzy, and the conversation keeps circling back to the same handful of names and teams. By the end, it's less sports analysis and more sports theater. That leads to the big question. How did First Take, a show that once captured daily audiences and shaped the conversation, become one of the worst shows on ESPN? Not worse as in lowest ratings or zero talent, but worse in the way that matters for fans, the least respectful of your time and attention. The show that taught an entire generation that being loud is the same thing as being right. Today we're going to walk through that slide, step by step. We'll rewind the early formula, trace the incentives that nudged the show toward outrage, look at how the on-air chemistry frayed, and examine the bad takes economy that turned debate into performance art. We'll also talk about what the audience noticed, because sports media watchers, from mainstream outlets to independent blogs to Reddit threads, have been saying the quiet part out loud for years. And finally, we'll simply ask a question. Is there a way back? Or is First Take permanently stuck in its own echo chamber? Let's start where it worked. At its core, First Take had one genuinely smart television insight. Sports fans love to argue, and arguments make great TV. When the format pivoted hard into debate in the early 2010s, the ingredients clicked. A moderator to steer traffic, a pair of outsized personalities to disagree, and a daily drumbeat of fresh topics. Ratings rose, clips traveled. The show became something you watched or listened to in the background, whether you're at the gym, the barbershop, the break room at your job, college lounges, or just driving in your car. And the numbers told the story. For a weekday morning window, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, First Take did ridiculous viewership relative to the slot. At one point stacking up in the 400,000 view range, even with SportsCenter airing live elsewhere. That's not a primetime Super Bowl bump or a one-off. That's a sustained habit. You don't get there without building something sticky. So how did sticky become slippery? The trap was baked into success. When you feed an algorithm, whether it's TV ratings, social media sharing, or YouTube clips, you eventually start cooking for the algorithm. The easiest way to scale attention isn't better research or sharper X's and O's. It's escalation, louder takes, sharper language, hotter labels. And First Take leaned right into it. It wasn't enough to just say, I think this team is flawed. You had to say the team was fraudulent. It wasn't enough to question a star's late game decisions. You had to suggest they're not that guy. And when one host discovered that a certain level of volume and certainty produced a knee-jerk spike in engagement, the show rewarded it. The problem? Escalation is more like a sugar rush. It gives you a clip, it doesn't give you context. Over time, the show's metabolism shifted from explaining sports to provoking reactions about sports. That's when the conversation stops being about the game and starts being about the take. You can see it in the infamous moments everyone remembers. Not because they're insightful, but because they're memeable. Remember the I want Iguodala in the clutch over Steph Curry take? Saying that clutch only counts if it's a buzzer beater. Followed by segments that flatten nuance into a scoreboard, like who's more him? Or the Kobe vs. Kawhi pressure argument that treated clutch as a tidy spreadsheet, ignoring the context of rosters, roles, and responsibilities. None of those moments alone doom a show. Sports talk should leave room for playful exaggeration and wild hypotheticals. When the conversation defaults to wild takes that literally make no sense, the audience learns to anticipate the bit. And once you're anticipating it, the magic disappears. It stops being a debate and becomes more of a sketch. First Take didn't invent sports media personalities, but it did perfect a very specific loop: self-promotion, controversy, apology, or victory lap, and more self-promotion. That loop rewards the person more than the point. Once your brand is the take, you're incentivized to manufacture new ones at a high clip, whether or not the sport requires it. We can cue the endless Cowboy segments, the evergreen LeBron discourse, the treadmill of who you got arguments rescanned every week if the team wins. The tape becomes, I told you. If the team loses, it becomes, I warned you. Either way, the meter keeps running. Again, in small doses, this is fine. The NBA and NFL are entertainment. But when the show prioritizes a small set of lightning rods like Dallas, the Lakers, LeBron, Aaron Rodgers, over the league at large, it narrows the audience understanding of the sport. Fans who want what actually happened and why feel pushed out. Fans who want jokes without venom feel talked over. And fans who grew up on the da-na-na, highlight-driven Sports Center wonder how we got from here's the actual play to here's why this play proves a 5-year agenda. Literally ridiculous. Let's live in the weeds, because the worst moments reveal a bigger pattern. First Take treats clutch like a buzzer beater only, which misunderstands pressure. Leverage lives on every possession when a run is swinging at matchup shifts or foul trouble and bench rotations reshape the floor. Collapsing that into a neat graphic trains viewers to ignore the why behind big moments, defensive tilts, play calls, fatigue, and context. The Iguodala over Steph line is the same problem dressed up as a meme. Fun radio, sure, but not credible analysis, because it erases Curry's gravity the way he warped coverage to create 4-on-3s and advantages even off ball. It was engineered to go viral. The Kobe versus Kawhi pressure debates double down on theatrics over method. If you really want to do that conversation, you define pressure windows, control of usage, and teammates. Account for error rules and lineup variants. Instead, the segment rewarded the boldest phrases and left fans feeling gaslit about what it means to carry a franchise every night. And the whole KD not top 5 in 2019 could have been a reasonable case with stated criteria. But the show rarely sits in criteria. It sits in provocation, lands a soundbite, and moves on. Multiply that approach across years in sports, and you end up with a highlight reel that takes that age like milk. That doesn't mean everyone on the show is unserious. Many frequent guests are excellent at their lane, but the container pressures everyone into the same cadence. You've measured, you slow down, you leave room for uncertainty, you sound weak so people crank the dial. And well, you can't talk about First Take's reputation without acknowledging the controversies that bled into the sports talk itself. Segments that introduce race in clumsy, inflammatory ways. Comments about players' identities, clothing, or language that landed not as analysts but as culture war chum. The show was criticized for chasing the hot button issues without the care those topics required. This isn't about don't talk politics. Sports are a culture. Players are people. Context matter. The problem is tone. If the style is built on dunking and volume, sensitive topics come out sounding like stunts. Audience didn't suddenly become sensitive. They became tired by the same old hot take format. And then there's the meta controversy. First Take has been accused of overcovering certain things way past the point of relevance because the name delivers clicks. The result is a distorted map of the sports world where marquee lights get brighter and everything else dims. Great debate TV like First Things First. I did a video on that, by the way. Check it out. Rely on invisible rules. Who sets the table? Who pokes holes? Who brings receipts? Who lands the dismount? First Take has cycled through hosts, moderators, and foils, from Skip to Max to a rotating cast. Carrie to Molly, a steady parade of analysts from football, basketball, baseball, hockey. The more cast change, the more the rhythm wobble. When a show's core identity is two stars clashing, replacing one star isn't a software update. It's literally a chemistry experiment. And because the brand demands heat, new voices often feel pressure to deliver when it comes to their disagreement instead of delivering a productive disagreement. That's why viewers frequently report enjoying off-brand episodes. When the usual lightning rods are off and the analysts are allowed to just talk sports, the temperature drops. The insight rises, then Monday hits. A-Block returns to Cowboys or LeBron or quarterback X, and we're back on the treadmill. Production changes become part of the story too. From years in Bristol Studios E to the move to Seaport in 2018, then to ESPN's new Lower Manhattan HQ in June 2025. First Take kept getting shinier toys. New desk, new screen, road shows from the Super Bowl to the finals, even a podcast feed and flood of YouTube clips to catch the digital audience. But a camera doesn't fix a broken compass. In fact, high-end production can mask editorial drift for a while. The show looks big, so it feels important. And the digital footprint, like shorts, thumbnails, snippets, prizes, snackable moments, which encourages more snack-sized thinking. But the problem with all this is, you don't build a meal out of appetizers. You can measure a show by the official ratings, but you understand it by listening to the people who watch or who used to watch. When fans say, I leave Get Up on, but I mute First Take, they're telling you something. When the comment section is calling it the sports version of the show The View, they're not asking for silence, they're asking for substance. When the most common phrase is, it's on in the background at the gym, that's not a compliment, that's an indictment. And when a random holiday lineup with two fill-ins leads to threads of, hey, this was actually good today, you got a good signal. The show people want still exists. Inside First Take's passionate, informed disagreement that teaches you something about the game, the show they're getting is often an exaggeration of that. You might say, who cares? It's just TV. If you don't like it, don't watch. And that's fair. In fact, it's something I actually stand by. But First Take isn't just a program. It's an influence machine. It sets a template for 1,000 podcasts and streams. It tells young creators that the path to growth is takes. It tells players that the only way to get coverage is to be polarizing, to be loud. And it tells fans that sports are gossip, not games. There's also an opportunity cost. Every minute spent on a bait segment is a minute not spent on why the Lions live in 12 personnel on early downs, or how the Thunder's 5-out spacing weaponized Jalen Williams, or what the Orioles player development pipeline means for small market baseball. Not every show has to be a chalkboard, but when the leading daytime show is allergic to nuance, the whole ecosystem tilts towards noise. One defense I hear about it is, well, it's entertaining, so lighten up. And I agree that sports TV should be fun. The issue isn't fun, it's when it's fake. When every segment is engineered towards some pre-planned debate that ends in a loud argument, you can feel it at the seams. The moderated tosses an alley-oop, the star host screams, the catchphrase, the guest offers the rehearsed counter, and we go to break. Rinse and repeat. Another defense I hear is, well, look at the numbers. Daytime TV benefits from routine and the sheer reach of ESPN, but numbers can't tell you if the relationship is healthy. Plenty of people eat fast food every day. That doesn't make it good for you. The show's worst takes live forever because the internet is a scrapbook with infinite pages. A single overheated segment becomes a meme, and now the meme becomes the reference the next time the topic comes up. You can't escape your own greatest hits when your greatest hits are self-inflicted wounds. And here's the quiet cost. Fans who might have grown with the show grow around it. Instead, they move to podcasts that break down film. They'll find creators who value detail over decibels. They watch Around the Horn or PTI for measured pacing. They dip into football first panels. Even when they argue, bring something new. Shifting from Barstool to Seaport to a glimmering Lower Manhattan HQ doesn't change the fact that the show's engine runs on outrage fuel. New set, same script. Road shows look cool. The NBA final backdrop pops. But if the segment always collapses into more heated than honest, the location becomes just a wallpaper. Even the podcast and YouTube strategy encourages the worst impulses. If every video has to be its own little cliffhanger, you're incentivized to manufacture clips. And if thumbnails reward a shocked face over a smart point, you're gonna get a lot of shocked faces. Here's the good news though. Fixing First Take isn't impossible. The playbook is literally sitting right there, and ESPN already has the tools to use it. First, the show needs themes, not tantrums. Imagine if each day had a backbone that rewarded real analysts instead of random shouting. Tuesdays could focus on quarterback development, Wednesday on defensive game plans, Friday on clutch craft. That kind of structure builds consistency and trust. Second, make criteria the king. Put a grading assessment on the screen and stick to it. Debates will feel sharper, cleaner, and easier to follow when everyone plays by the same rules. Third, expand the map. The Cowboys and the Lakers will always be there, but one segment a day should go where the A block never does. Film breakdown, bullpen management, or rotation tweaks. If you never surprise viewers, you eventually bore them. Fourth, rethink clutch. Stop saying clutch is only with buzzer beaters. Teach fans about leverage moments, like a third quarter stop or a game-turning transition bucket. That's how you build culture that feels smart, not cringe. Fifth, Reward calm. Not every block has to be a shouting match. One lower volume segment per hour where the best argument wins and not the loudest lungs would instantly make the show stand out. 6. Use the studio for teaching. ESPN has state-of-the-art screens. Use them to explain how defenses disguise coverage, how receivers use leverage, how a horn set flows into a Spain pick and roll. 5 minutes of that would outshine 15 minutes of forced arguments. And finally, own your misses. A weekly We Blew It segment that revisits bad takes, explains what went wrong, and refines the approach would earn the trust back. It would make future debates feel less like traps and more like evolving conversations. Calling First Take the worst show on ESPN isn't about dunking on personalities. Many of the people who sit at the desk are talented, charismatic, and deeply knowledgeable. It's about priorities. When a show that big chooses provocation first, it actively lowers the standard for everything around it. That's the worst outcome. Not for ESPN's brand, not for a single host's reputation, but for fans who want to feel smarter after they watch. There are two kinds of sports talk. One kind shouts, trends, and evaporates by dinner. The other kind sticks because it respects the game, respects the audience, and finds a way to be fun without being fake. First Take has spent too long trying to live off the first kind. The path back is simple, but not easy. Invert the incentives. Make clarity cool again. Make curiosity contagious. Make the clip a byproduct, not the goal. Do that, and the worst show on ESPN becomes a lot less worse pretty fast. Until then, the verdict stands. First Take didn't stumble into this reputation, it chased it. And if the show wants a different headline, it has to start chasing something else. But did you know about a show that just keeps growing? The hosts feel like a real team, not just a group of personalities sharing a desk. The topics move quickly without becoming messy. And most importantly, viewers keep coming back. Ratings have climbed, clips go viral, and the fan base feels like a community that understands the show's inside jokes and rhythms. If you want to know how First Things First is dominating sports TV, just click right here.